Hey guys, we are going to use a system of equations to solve this story problem. Eagle High School is putting on a play. If you pre-order tickets, you get a discount. Friday's showing had 400 pre-sold tickets and 100 sold at the door. They made $5,200 on ticket sales. On Saturday, they made $5,300 by pre-selling 350 tickets and selling 150 at the door. How much is the discount for buying tickets early? Whew. Okay, whenever I do problems like this, I like to read the whole thing through and then I go back and kind of piece it out. When we're using a system of equations to solve things, I like to figure out what my variables are. So what we are looking for is the discount. How much is the discount for buying tickets early? In order to know that, I need to know the price of the pre-sold tickets and the price of the tickets sold at the door. Then I can figure out the difference. So let's just go ahead and say P is the price of pre-sold tickets and D is the price of tickets at the door. Okay, now let's go ahead and see if we can figure out some equations we can write for these to figure out what these variables are. So we know on Friday they had 400 pre-sold tickets and 100 sold at the door, and we know that they made $5,200. So we know that 400 people bought pre-sold tickets. They bought them before the show. So 400 times however much the price of that pre-sold ticket was will give me the total they made on those types of tickets. Plus, there were also 100 sold at the door. So 100 times however much the at the door price is will tell me how much they made on the at the door tickets. We know the total for both of these on that day was 5,200. Now, there's a ton of pairs of numbers that could work for this, so we need to narrow it down and get another equation. So that's where we're going to use what happened on Saturday. So on Saturday, they pre-sold 350 tickets. So 350 times however much the pre-sold tickets cost, plus they sold 150 at the door. So 150 times however much the at the door price is. And the total amount of money they made was $5,300 that day. All right, now that I have these two equations that are related to each other, I can use them to figure out what the prices are. So the first thing I need to do is get one of my variables alone. So you can pick whichever one. I am going to try and get this D alone. All right, I've just looked at this problem. That's going to be the easiest one, just as a hint. But we're going to try and get this D by itself. So I have the 400p. I'm just rewriting that top equation because I'm going to move it around a little bit. I want to get D alone. So first I'm going to subtract 400p from both sides. When I do that, I'm left over here with 100d equals, I always like to write my variable first. You don't have to, but I just am in that habit. So negative 400p plus 5,200. All right, now d is being multiplied by 100, so I'm going to divide by 100 on both sides. I need to make sure I divide both of these by 100. When I do that, I end up with d equals negative 400 divided by 100 is just going to give me negative 4, and it still has that p. And then 5,200 divided by 100 is going to give me 52. Ooh, that's simplified down nicely. All right, now what do? Well, now I have what D equals in terms of P is what we call that. So now I can take this D and plug it into my other equation. I don't want to plug it into the one that I moved around. I want to plug it into the other one. So I'm going to plug in this negative 4p plus 52 for that D because that's what D equals. So this is what that will look like. I'm going to have 350p plus 150D. But remember, I am writing what D equals, which is negative 4p plus 52. The reason I use the parentheses is I need to make sure the 150 gets multiplied to both of those because D equals this whole thing. And that is equal to 5,300. All right, now we're just solving for P. Whenever I solve like this, I start with parentheses, but I can't add those because they're not like terms, but I can distribute the 150 in. So then I'm going to have 350p. 150 times negative 4p is going to give me negative 600p. 150 times 52 is going to give me 7,800. And this equals 5,300. All right, next I want to combine like terms. So 350p minus 600p is going to give me negative 250p plus 7,800 equals 5,300. All right, now it's just a two-step equation. You've probably done this a million times. I'm going to subtract 7,800 from both sides, and I end up with negative 250p equals negative 2,500. Okay, we're almost there, guys. Now, these are being multiplied, so I'm going to divide by negative 250 on both sides. And I end up with P equals, when I divide those, I end up with a positive 10. Yes, after all that work, P was 10. Now let's remember, what is P in the context of my problem? Well, P is the price of the pre-sold tickets. Oh, okay. So the pre-sold tickets were $10. Okay, not so bad. Well, now that I know that, the price of the tickets at the door will be pretty easy to find. I just need to plug this P in. I can do it here or here. It doesn't matter. I'll end up with the same answer. Let's just go ahead and do it with the top one. Why not? So I'm going to have 400 times P. But remember, I figured out P is 10. So we're going to plug that in there. Plus 100D, that's what we haven't figured out yet, equals 5,200. Well, 400 times 10 is 4,000, last time I checked, plus 100D equals 5,200. Again, just two-step equation. I'm going to subtract 4,000 from both sides, and I end up with 100D equals 1,200. Divide that 100, and I end up with D equals 12. All right, what was D? D was the price of tickets at the door. So tickets at the door were $12. Now, a lot of times when you are solving equations or systems of equations like this, like that's your answer, the 10 and the 12. This one just happened to ask, how much is the discount for buying tickets early? So if you bought them at the door, it was 12. If you bought them beforehand, the price was just $10. So the discount for buying them beforehand is $2. Yay! All right. I hope that was helpful. If you need some more examples, I've got lots of videos. I will link a playlist for you in the corner. Thanks.